There we go. All right, man, take it away. Floor is yours.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Ty, first of all, for inviting me. Never thought I'd be a presenter in a group like this, so it's an honor to talk to you guys for a few minutes this afternoon. My name is Dylan Rader. I am the fire planner for the Wildland Fire Service, formerly for Nevada BLM. So I'm still a little confused as far as who I work for right now, but I'm the fire planner for Nevada BLM. And um, outside of my day job, I'm also a qualified strategic operational planner and a complex plans chief. So one of the things that I was hoping to talk with you guys today and show you guys is a product that we've created for Nevada BLM. And I'm going to start there in the chat. I put the link to our link tree in, and I'm going to kind of use that to go through and highlight a couple different things. I need to make sure first I can get to my Zoom always puts that little bar right there across the top where you always have to get to. So let me rearrange that just a little bit, and there's probably a better way we can do this too, but we're going to do it like this for now. Okay, so yeah, there's a couple different products that I'm going to talk to. They're all available on this link tree. The link to the link tree is there in the chat. Towards the bottom here, this list, you'll see the two that we're going to focus on. And what they are is these maps right here. And again, maybe I can hide this. There we go. Yeah, I just learned something. Hide floating meeting controls. That's my favorite new function. So the map is divided into two different maps. And you see right here, I'm going to flip back and forth. The WFDSS objectives and the RMA map with PCO pods are the two that we're looking at. They're set up very similar, but I did set them up with a couple different layers because I wanted them to, basically what it is it mirrors all the layers that's available on the RMA dashboard. It just simplifies, it simplifies the map. And the intent of the map and what I created it for was to be a common operating picture. So when we have a fire, it can be an area where an agency administrator and an IC3 can go develop a common operating picture on what the potential control locations are for the fire, what the pod boundaries look for the fire, and any other type of operational considerations that we need to be making at that time. So when we built the map originally, we're still operating off of the spatial fire planning units, the strategic non-overlapping strategic objective shapes. And what we've tried to do for Nevada BLM over the last several years is standardize those objectives. And you can see here, we basically we don't have a lot of management options for our greater sage-grouse habitat in Nevada. What we do is prioritize. So obviously, our highest priority is for suppression, and our highest natural resource priority is for suppression in greater sage-grouse habitat. Followed by that is full suppression in non-greater sage-grouse. Followed by that, the third priority would be other than full suppression. So utilizing the layers, the public viewed layers that are available through the Spatial Fire Planning Service, we add these layers onto the map. And what that allows agency administrators to do is when they do have a fire, they're able to quickly zoom into their district and then look across their district and see, in this case, we're looking at Elko district. So red is full suppression greater sage-grouse, blue is full suppression non-greater sage-grouse, and the areas of green are where they have management options that are other than full suppression. So obviously, I'm using what could be considered outdated terminology as well. I know we've got a recent fire board memo that just came out that's looking to update some of the terminology vocabulary that we're used to using. But for the purpose of this exercise, we're still utilizing the old terminology, and we will be using the old terminology through this season as well. Um, Outside of not only demonstrating or being able to display what the subunit non-overlapping strategic objective shapes are for their fires, We've also got some other layers that we can demonstrate on this as well. One that we added on is Nevada BLM potential control locations. So what these areas are these are areas that have been actually ground truthed by SMEs, and they are fuels treatments that we have put on the ground that we have maintained with some sort of cycle where we are confident that they would influence fire behavior. We don't say they're going to hold a fire. We don't say you're going to contain a fire. We're saying that these are areas that could potentially influence fire behavior. So we add that to the map as well. And then an additional, the big one that we add to the map is our pod boundaries as well. So Nevada was a late entrance to the pod game, I guess you'd say. We didn't develop our pods until 2024. We worked with the Humboldt-Toyolby National Forest, and through a couple of different workshops, we developed pod boundaries basically across the state of Nevada. And when you look at our pod boundaries, specifically in relation to some of our neighboring units, the first thing is the extent of our boundaries, right? They're large boundaries. And we developed those that way. When we went into the pod workshops in 2024, going through exercises like this, listening to, some of the other expertise that had been working on pods, we felt for Nevada BLM that the pod container would be better correlated with a WFDSS planning area than an initial attack containment box or control box. So when we drew our pod boundaries, we drew them with the intent of these boundaries are predetermined planning area boundaries for WFDSS decisions, and our agency administrators can utilize that information knowing that they've got a certain level of quantified risk assessment already within those pod boundaries, and that's what we're doing with the pod summaries. We really appreciate what the RMA dashboard has done with those pod summaries. We weren't in a position, where we wanted to go full on into the quantitative risk assessment process for Nevada BLM. But we knew that by at least developing these interagency pod boundaries that we would be able to dip our toes into that QRA process and utilizing the utilizing these different summaries that are available through the RMA dashboard, we can summarize what the risk outside of just natural resource value, what is that risk across those areas as well. So that's how we utilize the pod boundaries. We've, put them together on this map. There's a couple different things that I did want to show here on the map, again, the SDI 90th percentile, SDI 97th percentile ground evacuation, national snag hazard, national burn severity, or burn probability. These are all the layers that we've incorporated from the RMA dashboard. And again, we are just copying the layers from the RMA dashboard, but it's meant to be kind of a simplified version of the RMA dashboard that, again, our agency administrators and our IC3s can go to and look at to develop that common operating picture when you're dealing with an extended attack fire. Um, so here's, maybe a good example from last year, just to kind of put into reference, size and extent versus with this planning area boundary. We've got a few large fires up here in northern Nevada, the Jake's fire over here next to Midas, and over here, this is the Cottonwood fire as well. So you can see here, at least for the Jake's fire, the planning area boundary would be a good planning area boundary and was a good planning area boundary for that fire. In the event of the Cottonwood fire was 130,000 acres, so definitely a large fire. In that case, it did extend into multiple pods, and kind of the direction and what we've learned from this is that if it does leave one pod boundary, you just go and you grab, the next unit boundary or the next pod boundary, and you can add all of those in together and then draw your planning area boundary around that. So that's really the intent of the map. The intent of the map is to, again, have a website that is a web-based map where agency administrators can go, IC3s can go. You can look at the risk metrics that are normally available through the RMA dashboard. In this case, we've tried to simplify what views are available, what layers are available for simplification purposes, and also for inclusion and WFDS decisions and so forth. We do, last year I started talking to this both with our Type 3 teams and our Type 3 ICs. And one of the things that, I really try to highlight is with these AGOL products, creating a georeference PDF map is as simple as pushing the print button. So to IC3s, what I tell people is if I'm an IC3 and I'm sitting at the Battle Mountain Airport waiting for a recon flight to go up to Midas and look at this 30,000 acre fire and I have 15, 20 minutes of internet service, I'm going to pull this map up, do a quick PDF map, print that out, have that available to me on my recon flight. And, maybe that doesn't necessarily buy you everything that a recon flight would buy you. If you've only got 30 or 45 minutes of flight time, you're able to prioritize where you want to look at based on where these potential control locations fall on the map and what the metrics are telling you and what your fire is doing as well. A couple of the other benefits of having it set up in this AGOL-based system, obviously, one is ease of use. You can add data. So, any of the national layers that are not represented on this map, if they're publicly or, viewed by the organization, by the AGOL org, they can be added to the map through this process. They can also be added as a standalone file or, any other ways that we add information to maps. So all of this is available. Again, it's publicly accessible. I guess you could say fortunate enough to set these maps up a few years ago, where maybe the public restrictions were a little less so on the AGOL side. I do maintain it. I do follow all of the acceptable use rules from NIFC AGOL, but it is publicly accessible. So we're able to utilize this not only for agency administrator decision support, IC3 decision support. You can also use it to brief incoming crews, operational resources, and so forth. Um, what I'm really so what I'm showing here is a score sheet that I developed last year for all of our BLM Nevada WFDS decisions. And basically what I'm trying to impress on our agency administrators is by using not only the pods and the metrics, the risk assessment metrics that are available through the RMA dashboard, we can make better decisions. We can create better WFDS decisions. And in this case, for the Cottonwood Peak fire, what does that look like? Well, sure, at least, in your initial decision needs to be a quick and dirty decision and out the door. But by day 3, 4, or 5 of an ongoing fire, you should be able to include more metrics and so forth. So in this case, I'm scrolling through kind of fast. I realize that, but I'm trying to get down here to where you can see in the actual decision, we're including the potential control location metric in that decision and making that viewable as part of the decision as well within the WFDS decision. And that's just one example. Others could be the SDI, the Special Difficulty Index. All of those metrics tell a story when phrased and summarized properly in the decision. So that's really the goal that I'm trying to get from our agency administrators, is to show them that by including things like this in their WFDS decisions, they can go from just a base decision to a decision that actually means something to an incoming team, to an incoming operations chief. And then also it helps to set the groundwork for that ISAP discussion as well, because that's kind of a new concept. It is a very new concept to a lot of our BLM agency administrators. And even just working within those concepts of suppression difficulty index, potential control locations, what that means on a map, a lot of that is new to our BLM agency administrators. So any examples I can get to try to work that in to help them in their decision support, that's what I'm trying to do as well. But that's basically my presentation. So yeah, hopefully there's some questions. I'll stick around until the end and answer any questions. But Ty, that's kind of the end of my presentation, if I can pass it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. I had a quick follow-up for you. So those PCLs that you said were ground truth by some SMEs. I know that's something that we've encountered with a lot of land management units, just like how to verify and validate pod lines. I'm just curious, what is the method that you've done to kind of validate these locations in these areas, and are there any key lessons learned that you would share in terms of recording that so it could be used by a broader audience?
Well, the ground truthing that we did is those lines are based off of recommendations by either our fuels program managers or our fuels specialists who go out and survey those. And we haven't done any updates now in over a year on those layers because when we initially built those layers, um, vegetation, the GIS layers for our vegetation treatments were somewhat lacking, and a lot of times they were confusing because they were just treatment after treatment after treatment stocked on top of each other. With IFPERS, we've gotten a lot better over the last couple of years, so we don't necessarily put as much effort into identifying these as we used to because we're able to use IFPERS more now. But basically, that was just a recommendation from local fuel specialists that either the treatment is still viable enough to where it would influence fire behavior, or there's been maintenance completed since the initial treatment to where the maintenance would do the same thing. There'd be some influence on fire behavior, and of course, across Nevada, invasive annuals are our biggest thorn in the side, whether we're talking wildfire treatments as well. So more often than not, that's what we're talking about as far as maintenance treatments is in all of our green strips, whether they're in brush or timber. We have to be able to go in and control those invasive annuals in year 2 and 3. So that's typically where that maintenance comes from.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, and if anyone has any like quick questions, feel free. We can give Dylan one more before we move on. Just for the sake of time, we'll just take one if there's anyone immediately. Okay, in that case, we're gonna move on to Dylan. I got some questions for you later, but yeah, we'll for the discussion at the end. But Christine, you are next up on my list here. Make sure you have everything you need. Uh, let's see. I think Dylan, I think you're still sharing. I'm trying to figure out how to. Let's see. There we go. All right. All right. I think Christine, I think I got you. I'm seeing a black screen on Zoom for